I could shed a tear right now. The reviews for Resident Evil Requiem are in, and this game looks and sounds like it's going to be an all-timer, an all-time Resident Evil game. And I think when Resident Evil is great, I think the gaming industry is winning. I think the world is winning. It's just a good time to be a gamer when we have a fantastic survival horror game get great reviews and it is raved around the game industry. So let's go through a few of the Metacritic reviews, and man, I'm just so happy. I'm so excited. This game is. I think we all had a feeling this game was going to be great. I mean, not only does it bring back a fan favorite in Leon, but just the blend. It just seems like Capcom just listened to the community and the people that were kind of torn. Like you have your first person, you have your third person, you have the blend of both. You can either do one or the other or both at the same time and change it at any point during the story. So I feel like Capcom really listened, and I'm so excited for Friday. I cannot wait to play this game. It's gonna be fantastic. So let's just dive right in. We're gonna look at some of the best scores and then some of the lower scores, just for a comparison. So let's go over. So right now, on PS5, it is with 76 reviews at the time of this recording, is sitting at an 88 average, which is fantastic. It is very hard for games to get into the 90s these days. Reviewers are just super harsh as of late. So anytime a game is like 85 and above, it's got to be a damn good game. So we shall start with, let's go to view all here, and we're just going to look at the higher score. So I'm not super familiar. We'll go to Gaming Bible and take a look. Full review. Let's take a look. I'm just gonna read this full, and then we'll go to like one of the lower reviews. Resident Evil Requiem is the latest entry in Capcom's iconic survival horror series, filled with nostalgia and driven by emotion. On September 29th, 1998, a rookie cop by the name of Leon S. Kennedy, the GOAT, was on his way to begin his first shift at the RPD. Little did he know that he would soon crash into a sinister government covered up caused by the pharmaceutical company Umbrella that unleashed the T virus created by bio-organic weapons. 28 years later, Leon returns to the place where it all began for him in Raccoon City, along with the new protagonist of the series, Grace Ashcroft. However, Raccoon City is in ruins following the U.S. government's attempt to cover up the conspiracy by dropping a nuke. Yet, in the world of Resident Evil, nothing truly stays dead and buried forever. Let's see. Resident Evil Requiem is the first game in the series to be exclusive to the 9th generation console, meaning that there's no PlayStation 4 or Xbox One release. I think that's awesome. It's finally time to get away from the Xbox One and 4. Those are great systems, but we're 5 years in, 6 years in almost into the new generation. While this might be unfortunate news for those who have not adopted to current consoles, it has undoubtedly worked in the game's favor from visual, performance, and technical perspective. Resident Evil Requiem looks gorgeous. Visually, Requiem looks fantastic. The character model detail on Leon and Grace, as well as its horrific creatures, is the best the series has been, and that includes the 2023 remake of Resident Evil 4, which was an incredible game. Leon is now older, wiser, and more ruthless. The pain can be seen on Leon's face, as well as the aggressive satisfaction of brutally kicking zombies in the head against a brick wall. His glorious hair flows like a L'Oreal male model, and he moves with more swag, knowing that he's ready to take on whatever comes his way. I love it. Subtle details such as reloading weapon while holding a torch is an immersive detail I appreciate. He'll gently rest the torch against his chin as he pops in each new bullet. Sometimes it's the smaller details that can add a greater level of immersion. See, that I agree with. I know we get kind of hung up in like photorealistic details, but I love like animation stuff. That's awesome. As for Grace, she's quite the opposite of our seasoned veteran. She may be the FBI agent sent on a mission to investigate a series of gruesome murders at Brentwood Hotel, just on the outskirts of Raccoon City. But to put it mildly, Grace is a nervous wreck. The constant terror can only be seen on her face, but also in her body. The term "a fish out of water" comes to mind. This terror can be seen even better when playing in a third-person perspective, one of the two perspectives that the player is able to choose in-game. Grace is constantly breathing heavily, and she's constantly muttering worries to herself in the third-person perspective. When Grace is caught being chased by that giant female monster that we've seen in the trailers, her terror is highlighted further by how frantically she sprints and fumbles all over the place. Something that does not happen in first person, of course. I think that's what people kind of miss maybe from the first person perspective is you can't see the characters terror, you're only kind of living, you're really only realizing your terror versus third person. So I appreciate that detail. Put it this way: when being chased, there's a good chance that she'll run past the door in sheer panic, which only adds to the tension. So if you thought that third person might be a little less strenuous than first person, think again. Don't get me wrong; I find Resident Evil Requiem scarier and more up close and personal first person perspective, but in its own way, especially with its panic factor, the third person perspective has its own kind of fear. No matter what you prefer, I love that we could experience the game when and how we want, and I think that's what I was talking about is. Um, First person for a while, it seems like it's more scarier than third person. So the fact that they incorporated the scare factors and made it just as scary no matter what version you play, I think is awesome. Like being able to accidentally miss a door is, I think that's genius. Like that's so awesome. One thing I particularly wanted to draw attention to is the lighting effects in Resident Evil Requiem. They are fantastic and moves beyond the simple illumination from a simple lamp. The shine of the moon beaming through a slightly closed curtain window and even the dusty daylight of a crumbled Raccoon City all work almost as another character. The shadow effects can also be to your advantage as you can hear a zombie shuffling down the hallway and see its shadow increasing in size with each footstep. RE2 was like incredible with that type of stuff. Zombies have evolved. Speaking of zombies, they look more grotesque than ever, sure, but they have more personality. For reasons suggested in the story, a lot of zombies, especially during the early parts of the campaign, will have snippets of human memories. I think that's such a cool twist on zombies. For example, a surgeon might mutter about recent operation, or a cleaner might frantically clean a blood-stained window until they see you. Then they snap right back and let their cannibalistic tendencies consume them. It's gory, gruesome, and glorious. Zombies have more attack abilities than ever before. Chainsaw-wielding zombies are nothing new in Resident Evil, and typically they stand out with a different design and take more damage. However, in Resident Evil Requiem, pretty much any standard-looking zombie can wield a chainsaw. When the zombie is killed, the chainsaw will be dropped, and you can pick it back up, something not possible in previous mainline entries. So cool. But other zombies can also pick up a chainsaw, so you might want to prioritize getting it to it first. A campaign of two halves. Take a little drink. Swig of my drink. The story of Resident Evil Requiem is essentially split into two halves, one for Grace and the other for Leon. Grace's campaign is much slower pace as she makes her way through the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center Hospital, desperately trying to avoid enemy detection, whether sneaking or by throwing an object to draw attention. Grace can wield a handgun, but in my experience, not only is ammo more scarce than for Leon, but she's also not as capable in attack as Leon. Makes sense, with her nervous hands shaking. That's really cool. In a lot of cases, combat might be a last resort. For the most part, you will play as Grace about 80% of the time during her campaign, with the occasional short switch to Leon. I'd compare Grace's segments to the slow-paced Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Makes sense. As for Leon, with the assistance of Sherry Birkin for Resident Evil 2, they're trying to find a cure for the Elpis virus, a mutated strain of the T-virus, so many strains, that they contracted in 1998. Without giving anything away, their investigation leads to Dr. Victor Gideon of the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center, who also has a strong connection with Grace. Leon's campaign is high octane, the Resident Evil 4 on steroids. Hell yeah. Leon will punch and kick zombies in the face and perform brutal shotgun blasts at close range. He handles weapons more expertly. After all, he's a seasoned veteran, and he has more inventory space than Grace. I was worried that his segments would be too close to resemble Resident Evil 6, by overdoing it with silly action sequences. Thankfully, that is not the case, largely due to Resident Evil Requiem having a direction and knowing exactly what aims to achieve by offering the best of RE7 and RE4 remake. That's so good to hear, because I think that was the biggest concern with the two campaigns, as people look back at Resident Evil 6, and obviously that's not a very good game. If anything, the two contrasting styles of Grace and Leon help to break up the pace rather than being all in one or another. All right, just a little bit left here. Playing into Leon's action-oriented shenanigans, there's even a cool in-game rewards mechanic that gives you points for each enemy that you kill. It added a layer to its combat by encouraging me to attempt to be more creative with kills to earn maximum reward points. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. Tougher the enemy, the more points you'll receive. The points can be spent on new weapons, attachments, and upgrades, though it's a shame that Resident Evil Requiem doesn't have its own proper merchant. Okay, a little bit of a bummer with the merchant, but still cool that it emphasizes like you doing unique kills, so that's cool. If you're concerned that the action segments will remove a lot of horror, if you're not, sure, Leon's campaign is nowhere near as scary as Grace's, but Leon will be overwhelmed by larger groups of enemies, and in some cases larger enemies. I'll leave it at that. I only wish that the destroyed RPD was more explorable, but it was still a goosebump moment nonetheless. Very cool. Kind of a bummer we don't get to fully explore, but it's also like it's destroyed. Like how much can we actually explore of something that's been nuked, right? So makes sense. Final thoughts. Resident Evil Requiem is everything that I hoped it would be, and a little bit more. It knows when to ramp up the tension and when to bring it down, aided by the two contrasting yet entwined styles of Leon and Grace. I heard that the developers had said something that they can use this game as a starting point in the series, which is technically true with almost every game. That being said, I would at least recommend the remakes of Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4, as it would serve as a disservice, robbing you of the emotions felt when returning to the RPD. 100% agree with that. Resident Evil Requiem looks fantastic and performs a stable frame rate, at least by my eyes, and it encourages different approaches to certain sections of the game, whether it's stealth action, increasing its replay value, amongst other factors. It has classic puzzles and inventory management, and mostly importantly, at least with Grace, feels like a proper survival horror game with something extra for high-octane Resident Evil 4 fans. As a horror game in its own right, Resident Evil Requiem is a very solid 9 out of 10, but as a passionate of the series, it adds an additional bonus point thanks to the addition of detail and craft that's gone into every pore of this game. Resident Evil Requiem is my game of the year so far, has earned my first 10 out of 10 in my 3 years at Gaming Bible. Now, if you excuse me, I have a game to replay. Pros: feels like a survival horror, an action game while maintaining a series identity, looks gorgeous, gripping story. That's key to hear because Resident Evil stories aren't always like super great. Zombies have character. I love Grace. Cons: I wanted more RPD. Perfect. All right. Well, that was a fantastic review. Who is the reviewer of this? That was I thought was a really great review. Richard Breslin. Great review. Just makes me more excited for this game. All right, let's check out a lower review score for comparison. All right, let's go down. Let's just find the lowest one, the bottom. So okay, so the lowest is a 60. So pretty high difference. All right, Resident Evil Requiem is, so this is for my region free. Again, I've never heard of this website or outlet. Resident Evil Requiem is a mixed bag of great highs and numerous lows. Heavy on nostalgia and fan service with the occasional violent delight thrown in, Requiem is a mostly fun Resident Evil title that still feels like a step down from its predecessor. So 8 would be its predecessor, right? Your enjoyment of Resident Evil Requiem will hinge on nostalgia. Okay. Namely, how too much is too much and your attachment to legacy characters in the now almost 40-year-old franchise. Well, when you bring back Leon, I mean, that's your kind of, I don't think people would be nearly as hyped for Requiem if Leon wasn't in it. If, like me, you felt the Resident Evil 7 and Village were some of the best additions to the series because they finally took a step outside the recycled elements, you're going to have a rough ride. Resident Evil Requiem is a soft reset, one that leans on your knowledge of Minish-Schwa so much that it feels like homework. That said, it's also Capcom's latest showcase of their technical wizardry and one of the most visually stunning games of this generation. At its best, it is still an effective and thrilling ride that balances out the scares with absurdity like no other. If you're a mega fan who spends a lot of time connecting the dots between minor characters from previous entries and knows exactly what Leon Kennedy likes to have for breakfast, you'll have a blast with the Requiem. For everyone else, it's much more of a mixed bag. Let's see. I'm not going to read the entire thing. Requiem introduces the new protagonist of the series. Let's see. Try to see if there's any highlights I can look at. Grace's campaign is old school to the point that it feels dated. Her inventory is extremely limited. Well, she's not like, she's not a run and gunner. She's not like a specialist in guns, so she's not going to have all that stuff. Though you can find small pouch upgrades at random intervals, and every item, including plot essentials, take up valuable space. Okay, welcome to Resident Evil. There are more than a dozen times where you'll end up running back and forth between the sparsely located magic trunks to throw out things just to fit in the important key. Again, welcome to Resident Evil. That happens all the time in Resident Evil. If you play in classic difficulty, you have to throw in ink ribbons for manual saving, as every death sends you back to the last typewriter. Since enemies can often one-shot kill Grace the moment they see her, it leads to an aggravatingly slow experience, which is at odds with its fast pace. Okay, I don't think you can knock a game for its difficulty options. Like if you want, you knowingly go into this game knowing that you need ink ribbons and it's like the old school Resident Evil games. I don't know if you can knock it for that. Leon's story on the other hand is much more fun. The only problem that it feels like a different game entirely. One where Grace, I mean, that's the point. Okay, that's the point of the game, right? You have two different play styles, two different campaigns. that intertwine. Yeah. But on a positive note, Resident Evil Requiem is a technical marvel. It looks incredible on the PS5 Pro, running at full 4K with ray tracing and totally steady at 60 FPS. Okay. Jonathan Conan. Leads to the past, never lets go. How much you'll enjoy that entirely depends on nostalgia. I think Resident Evil games have always leaned on nostalgia in a little bit, and I've always thrown in, 7 not so much, but they've all but even Chris shows up at the end of 7, so they always throw in like little tidbits of the game, of previous games and like the lore of Resident Evil, just to keep people kind of stringing along. So to knock a game because it's nostalgic heavy, I don't think is fair. I don't, as long as the story's good and you can make sense of it, but I think it's fine. And let's be honest, like if you're jumping in for Resident Evil for the first time for Requiem without any prior knowledge to Resident Evil games, as long as you can like understand the story, it's somewhat. I guess that's okay. But I think that's kind of crazy. I mean, this is the ninth game of the series. Like, you kind of want it to be a little bit fan servicey. I don't agree with that review. Granted, I didn't read the entire thing, but I don't know if I love that review. It feels sometimes with these lower score reviews in comparison to the majority being higher reviews, it's like, are you actually reviewing it this low, or are you doing it just for the sake of getting extra eyes on your review because it is so low? Let's look at the other platforms. So PS5, highest reviewed, so it's back up to an 89. Xbox is a 91, PC 91, and Switch 2. This is where I'm playing Resident Evil Requiem, so I'm very, granted, it's only 11 versus over 100 for PS5, so that's where majority of people are reviewing it at, but sitting at a 91 at the Switch 2 is incredibly exciting. So that being said, I am so excited for Resident Evil Requiem. Looking at the reviews, the score makes me even more excited. I already knew I was going to get it. I already knew it was going to be a fantastic game based off the previews and the trailers, but this just solidifies that Resident Evil is going to be an early Game of the Year contender, and I can't wait. So let me know in the comments below if you are excited for Resident Evil Requiem, and let me know where you're going to be playing it. Again, like I said, I'm going to be playing on the Switch 2. It's reviewing very well on the Switch 2. Excited to be able to play that handheld and on the go and all that good stuff. So, yeah, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.